Now in this lesson I wanted to talk a little bit about creating background effects or background elements for your designs, and there are a number of different ways of creating interesting backgrounds, and I just want to share with you a few of my favorites that I use all the time. And some of them contain photographs, some of them are just creating art right from scratch, and that's what we're going to start with, is actually using an existing pattern. So I've already got my document set up here. I'm going to jump over to my file where I've got some stock art here. These are just a bunch of stock swirlies that I found. And I'm going to go and use the second one to create my pattern with. So I'm going to zoom in here and grab my lasso tool right here. I'm just going to drag around and select this one swirly shape here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy it to the clipboard, and let's go ahead and create a new document. And I'm going to change, and now obviously it's picking up the dimensions of the selection that I just made, but I'm going to change it because I want it to be working in a perfectly square document. So I'm going to change that to inches, and let's set this to, well, let's do 5 by 5 at 150 in RGB. Doesn't really matter. I'll click OK. And then once that document's created, I'm going to go into the Edit menu and go to Paste. And there is my little graphic. Now it's still got that white background around it. So what I'm going to do here is a little trick for generating a selection of that. I'm going to merge it down to the background layer and press Command or Control I to invert the values. So now that the object is white, go right in here to the channels and just Command or Control click right on that RGB channel, and it loads all the light areas as a selection. And in this case, all the light areas are the entire shape because it's just a black and white image. So with the selection active, create a new blank layer, and I'm going to fill it with white. I'm going to Command Delete, I'll be Control Backspace to fill in my background swatch, which is white. And now we can highlight that background layer and just fill it with black, and now our shape is on its own layer, and we can move it around. Now, let's start generating our pattern. Well, first thing I'm going to do is press Command or Control T and then rotate this. Holding down my Shift key, I'm going to rotate it so it's standing straight up, basically a 90-degree turn. And we'll position this right about here. I'm going to drag a duplicate, or just simply press Command J of that layer. And we'll go into the Edit menu and go to Transform, Flip Horizontal. And we'll just slide this over a little bit so it starts to give me what looks like a kind of a cool symmetrical look. And we'll just come out about right there. And then I'm going to merge those two layers together. I'm going to press Command or Control E. And let's go ahead and center this in the middle of my document. I'm going to press Command A to select everything and just center the alignment here. Now, press Command or Control T, and I'm going to scale this up a little bit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I'm going to make 3 duplicates of this layer. Actually, just 1 for now. I'm going to press Command J, and it'll make a duplicate. And let's turn this off for now. And this top one I'm going to drag up to the very top here, pretty much until it snaps to the middle area there. And if you don't have that on, you can go down here to Snap to and then check it all on, because I feel it snapping right to the edge there. Again, with this one, I'm going to take it and go under Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical on the duplicate. Nope, it's not the one I wanted to change. Let's do select the top duplicate layer, then go under Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical, and we're going to drag this until it snaps to the bottom right there. Now I'm going to select, or press Command or Control A to select everything, and let's align those horizontally, each layer, as you can see. Now I'm going to make another duplicate of that layer. This time pressing Command or Control T, and I'm going to go in here and just hold down my Shift key and rotate 90 degrees again, and then take it right up to the top here, pretty much until that edge snaps in there. But I'm going to scale it disproportionately here. I'm going to hold down the Option key and just scale it from the center and just kind of get that shape kind of fitting in that area there. As you can see, it kind of scoops up in here and kind of fits in that shape there. So let's press Enter. And again, we need to move it until we feel it snap to the center there, right about there, right there. Again, pressing Command or Control A, and this time we're going to vertical align it. And we'll make a duplicate of that layer. Again, flipping this around. You can see what's going on. We're just taking the same shape and creating a kaleidoscope type of effect with it. Now that pattern is repeating all the way around. It's because we snapped those middles to the outer edge now. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn off that background layer. You notice each element is on its own layer, as you can see right there. And all it is the same shape. We just rotated them around and just created a really weird kaleidoscope effect. I'm going to turn off that background layer. I'm going to go ahead and leave the shapes white. You can barely see them against the transparent background there. But before I do anything, basically we're ready to define this as our pattern. But before I do that, I want to take and make the image a little bit smaller. Let's drop that resolution down to 100. And now, with all those elements visible against a transparent background, let's go into the Edit menu, Define Pattern. And now it is defined. Let's go ahead and create a new document. Let's make it pretty high res. Let's make it 12 by 7 at 300. So I got a good size file there. Let's go ahead and put a background color on here. Let's do a blue. No, let's do a red. So select that red swatch. I'm going to press Option Delete since it's my foreground color. Now I'm going to create a new layer. Now I could go and just press Shift Delete and fill, and use on the Use menu here, use Pattern, and then go ahead and load it in there. But I like to apply it as a layer style because it gives me the control over the scaling of it. So do this. Press Shift Delete to bring up the fill dialog. Use 50% gray, and we'll go ahead and do that. In the Layer Styles menu, go into Pattern Overlay. And inside this pattern menu should be the the pattern you just defined. It should be the very last thing, which will select that one, and there it is. How cool is that? But the beauty of it, we can scale it and move it and do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Now, you're probably thinking, what about that gray background? No problem. Go into the blending options, drop the fill opacity down to 0, and your original pattern will show through, or your original color will show. And let's perhaps change the blend mode of this to overlay. And it gives me a really interesting background effect. All done right there in Photoshop. Just manipulating some basic shapes and then turning it into a textured background. Again, applying it as a layer style is going to make it much more user-friendly in the fact that you can scale it and you don't have to keep refilling a new layer and doing all that other stuff. So let's talk about a couple of more quick background techniques. Here I have an image of a watch. Now this is an oldie, and this has been done over and over. A lot of people have done this technique, but it never seems to get old because it always ends up looking cool. And in my opinion, where it looks the best are watch ads. This is why I've got a watch here. Let's go ahead and create a duplicate of that. And you'll be surprised how cool this is and how quick it takes you. So let's go ahead and turn off that original duplicate and work on this one. I'm going to zoom out this document. I'm going to press Command or Control T to bring up the free transform in this shape. I'm just going to, or let's go rotate it a little bit here, and I'm going to scale it like crazy. It's not a background, so yes, it is resampling, but it's just going to be a background effect, so it's really no problem about the resolution. So we got a good size there. Let's go into the filter and apply a little bit of an unsharp mask in there just to bring back a fair amount of that detail there. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the color information just as we did earlier. I'm going to press Shift Command U to desaturate the image, and then just simply change the blend mode of the layer. Let's do overlay. Or you can soften it up and do soft light. And reposition it. You can let's go ahead and apply a layer mask on that and maybe have it fading in. So with the foreground to transparent layer mask, let's just kind of fade in the top here. A little bit at the bottom there, so it's a very subtle screened background there. And let's bring back that original watch and make it look like it's in the ad there. So buy this watch, it's classy. Just like that. We can add maybe a little bit of a variation of the background here. If I create a new blank layer above that, and let's go in here and sample that background color. And on that blank layer, I'm going to use that same foreground to transparent gradient. Put a gradient across there. We don't see an immediate change because it is the same color, but just change the blend mode to multiply. You get a variation of color in the background there, looking pretty cool. And you can always change the color. So if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to make it green background, or no, let's make it a blue. Once I fill that in, because that watch is on its own layer, it's going to have the screening effect and everything looking good with it. So let's just lock that transparency on that multiply layer and fill it in. Gives me the dark background. Everything looks cool. So that's like I said, that's an oldie. It's a quick and easy way of making an ad or a layout look a little bit classier by making a bigger version of it and putting it in the background there. Now, one last thing about backgrounds I want to talk about. And that is something really cool and using adjustments to create backgrounds. Here I've got a very simple image of this girl, and I want to use this kind of as a screen background for my image. Well, here's a cool way of going about doing that. Go into the channels and Command or Control click right on that RGB channel, or you can press Command 2, and it will load the luminosity of your image as a selection. Well, go back into your Layers panel. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to deselect. You need to go ahead and create a new blank layer. And we're going to do this against a colored background. So I'm just going to go here and choose. And for argument's sake, let's do this blue background. So I filled the layer with the color. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off for the moment. And again, let's go back into those channels and Command or Control click right on that RGB channel. It loads the luminosity. Back over into our Layers panel. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the Adjustment menu and choose Levels. And with that active selection, you'll notice what happened here. It popped open the Adjustments panel with the levels ready. Here's the adjustment layer with the layer mask of the image. So if I just go in here and modify the settings here, it'll bring back that image in there. And this is just an adjustment. It's based on a selection, but it gives you that screen background effect, and you have complete control over how much or how little is seen. Just like that. So it's really just applying levels to this colored layer, and you're only seeing it through the layer mask, which is made up of that image. So it's a cool way of generating a screen back version of a background. It's not taking up a whole lot of your file because this layer mask makes the file considerably smaller than using an actual layer. So it's another way of going about creating backgrounds in Photoshop. So that's just a handful of my favorite ways of going about creating backgrounds. Like I said, there's a number of different ways, but I hope this gives you a good place to start on generating your own very cool backgrounds.